It's good to have you here tonight. Maybe you have known this before. Falling asleep with a problem knotted tight, and waking to find it quietly undone, as if someone had worked on it while you were gone. You did nothing you can remember. You gave no instruction, kept no watch, and yet something in you was finished by morning. Who was awake in you, doing the work you never saw? Let your eyes close now, and let the watching stop. Somewhere beneath your knowing, a quiet work begins that you were never meant to see. Welcome to Sleepy Science Facts. So let this be the question we follow into the dark. What does your brain quietly finish each night that your waking mind can never reach? For the next hour, we lean toward the labor you can never witness. The sorting and saving that only happens once you have gone. The answer begins in a place you have already been, though you have never once been present for it. Tonight, as you drift off, something in you keeps working. The brain does not switch off during sleep. It shifts into a different kind of labor, sorting through the hours you just lived. Nerve cells that fired while you learned something today will fire again in the dark, quietly, without your knowledge. You will not feel it happen. You will not remember giving your permission. And underneath everything we explore tonight sits one gentle question. What does your brain quietly finish each night that your waking mind can never reach? We begin not with an answer, but with that question, and with the strange truth that your most important mental work asks nothing of you at all. The moment you try to watch yourself fall asleep, sleep slips away. To observe the process, you would have to stay awake. And staying awake is exactly what stops it. This is a genuine limit, not a personal failing. Consciousness and deep sleep cannot share the same instant. The watcher and the watched cancel each other out. Scientists face the same wall from the outside, needing electrodes and quiet rooms to see what you cannot. So the most ordinary thing you do each night is also something you will never directly experience. You cross into sleep every evening, yet you have never once caught yourself in the act of crossing. You can never name the exact second you fell asleep, and there is a reason for that. As you drift down, the hippocampus, the brain's recorder of new memories, powers down before the rest of you does. Without it, no memory of the transition gets written. The last clear moment you hold is always a little before the edge, never the edge itself. Researchers call this sleep onset amnesia, and it visits every person, every night. You have crossed this threshold thousands of times, and it has left no footprints behind. The doorway into sleep quietly erases itself behind you as you pass through, so you arrive without ever seeing the entrance. Sleep is not the absence of activity. It is activity of another kind. If you could look inside a sleeping head, you would find storms of electrical rhythm as busy as any waking afternoon. The pattern changes, not the effort. Slow, rolling waves sweep across the outer brain. Brief flares of rhythm burst and fade. All of this unfolds in someone who feels from the inside, as though nothing at all is happening. From where you lie, sleep is a blank. From the brain's side, it is one of the busiest shifts of the whole day. You are present for the stillness and absent for the work moving beneath it. Roughly every few seconds during light sleep, the brain sends up a quick burst of rhythm called a spindle. Each one lasts about a second, a tight flurry near 12 to 15 cycles per second, and it marks a moment of memory being handled. People who produce more of these spindles after learning tend to remember more the next morning. Yet no spindle ever announces itself. You do not feel the burst, cannot count them, and will never know how many crossed your night. Hundreds of these small signals may pass while you lie still, each one a quiet act of keeping. The filing happens in a language your waking mind has no way to hear. During deep sleep, the paths your neurons took while awake light up again, in the same order, only faster. If you walked a route today, the cells that mapped it will retrace that route in the dark, compressed into a fraction of a second. Scientists call this replay, and it is how the day gets rehearsed into something lasting. But the rehearsal is silent. You do not re-see the walk. Do not relive the lesson. There is no dream of it you could later report. The memory is being pressed deeper into you by a hand you cannot feel. What you practiced while awake, your sleeping brain practices again, without ever inviting you to watch. Not everything you experience today will survive the night. Somewhere, in the dark, your brain works like a librarian alone in a closed archive, deciding which moments to shelve and which to let fade. It favors what mattered, what carried feeling, what you were rewarded for, what you flagged as worth keeping. The rest gently thins out. This sorting is deliberate, not random, and yet it happens entirely without you. You never hand over a list. You never approve the choices. By morning, some memories have been quietly promoted and others quietly released, and the reading room stood empty the whole time the work was being done. A fresh memory does not stay where it first lands. When you learn something, it is held at first by the hippocampus, a fast but temporary keeper. Over nights of sleep, that memory is slowly copied outward into the wider cortex, where it can last for years. The teacher hands the lesson to a more permanent student while you sleep. And here the ordinary idea of memory begins to loosen. What you have in mind is not sitting still, waiting to be recalled. It is being moved, night after night, by a process you never attend. If memory is something done to you in the dark, how much of remembering did you ever truly hold? Think of everything you have memorized in your life. Names, route, skills, faces. Not one of them arrived with a sensation of being saved. There was no click, no warmth, no small signal telling you a memory had just been secured. The act of storing leaves no trace at all in awareness. This is strange to sit with. The most durable things you own were installed without your ever noticing the installation. You simply woke one day already knowing them. Whatever engraves a memory into you works below the floor of feeling, in a silence so complete that you never once suspected the work was going on beneath your rest. Night after quiet night. Deep sleep is ruled by slow waves. Great, unhurried swells of electrical activity that roll across the whole cortex less than once a second. These waves are not idle. They act like a conductor, timing the bursts and ripples so that memory transfer happens in step, hippocampus, and cortex speaking on the same beat. When the timing is good, more is kept. When sleep is broken, the conversation stutters, and less of the day survives. All of this coordination unfolds in a mind that experiences only blankness. The orchestra plays a long, careful piece each night, and you, the very one it plays for, sleep through every single note. Some part of you clearly knows how to do this work. It has done it flawlessly since before you were born. But that knowledge does not belong to the self that thinks and plans and worries. There are two kinds of knowing at play here. What the brain knows how to do, and what you can consciously reach. They are not the same, and the gap between them widens at night. Your sleeping mind is fluent in a skill your waking self cannot even observe, let alone perform on purpose. You cannot decide to consolidate a memory the way you decide to lift your arm. The mind's most vital housekeeping is handled by a part of you that never asks your opinion. Most of what your mind produces at night, you will never bring back. You dream for perhaps 2 hours across a full night. Yet by breakfast, almost all of it is gone. This is not carelessness, it is chemistry. The brain runs low on a signal called norepinephrine during dreaming, and without it, the recorder that saves waking memories barely writes. So the dreams happen fully, vividly, to someone, and that someone leaves behind no record you can read. An entire hidden life plays out behind your closed eyes each night, authored by you, witnessed by no one, and forgotten before you can even wake to ask what it meant. Sleep may do something quietly kind with painful memories. It seems to keep the lesson while wearing down the sting. During dreaming sleep, the brain appears to replay emotional experiences in a calmer chemical setting, one nearly free of the stress signals present when the event first happened. Night after night, the sharp edge of a hard memory may soften while its meaning stays intact. This is part of why a grief can feel a little more bearable after real sleep, even when nothing outward has changed. The repair, if that is what it is, seems to be done gently, in the dark, on a version of the memory you are not awake to feel being handled. You wake carrying the same story, perhaps a fraction lighter than before. You have felt the result of this hidden work, even if you never saw the work itself. A problem that tangled you in the evening sometimes loosens by morning, its answer sitting there as though it had arrived on its own. In one careful study, people who slept were far more likely to spot a hidden shortcut in a task than those who stayed awake the same hours. Sleep had reorganized what they knew and handed back a clearer version. You did nothing you could point to. You simply woke, knowing more than when you closed your eyes. Quiet proof of a labor you were absent for, delivered to your waking door before you asked. Each night, a conversation takes place inside your skull, and you are not invited to it. The hippocampus, holding the day's fresh impressions, speaks first, sending compressed bursts of the day down into the deeper cortex. The cortex answers with its slow waves, and together they settle what becomes lasting. It is a dialogue with no words, no sound, no one listening from your side of things. This exchange has been measured in sleeping brains again and again. It is real and reliable. Yet both speakers are you, and the self that would want to overhear is precisely the one switched off so the conversation can happen at all. You are the topic, never the audience. Consider the strangest implication of the night's work. The one room in your memory you can never stand guard over is the one where memories are most open to being changed. Researchers have shown that a memory can be strengthened while you sleep, deliberately, from outside, and you would never know it had been touched. You cannot consent, cannot object, cannot even notice. Everywhere else in your life, you can at least look. Here, you are absent by design. The place where you are most vulnerable to influence is precisely the place you are forbidden to enter. Your keeping and your losing are settled behind a door that only closes when you do. Not all of the night's work is keeping. Some of it is careful forgetting. Across a day of learning, the tiny connections between your neurons grow crowded and strong, until the brain can barely tell signal from noise. During deep sleep, many of these connections are turned down together, weakened just enough to let the important ones stand out clearly again. It is a pruning, a nightly clearing of clutter so the next day has room to hold more. You never choose what gets trimmed. You wake with a mind quieter and sharper than the one you fell asleep with, edited overnight by a gardener you have never met, working while the whole house lay dark. What you learn today is most fragile tonight. A new memory, in its first hours, is easily lost, bumped aside by newer experiences, worn down by time. The first night of sleep after learning is when the brain does the heaviest work of anchoring it, and sleep missed on that night is hard to make up later. In a real sense, tonight decides how much of today you will still own next week. Yet you make that decision by doing nothing at all, simply by sleeping. The fate of a whole day's worth of living is settled in the dark, by a process you set in motion only by finally letting go of the day. Add up the hours and you will spend around a third of your entire life asleep, some 25 years, if you are lucky enough to reach a full age. That is 25 years of this hidden sorting and mending, and you are conscious for almost none of it. A quarter of your existence is spent doing essential work you will never witness, in a state you cannot even describe from the inside. It is the largest thing you do and the least seen. When you picture your life as the sum of your waking days, you are quietly leaving out a vast, faithful, invisible portion of it, the part that made all the rest of it possible. Notice how sleep folds time in a way that waking never does. You close your eyes, and hours vanish in what feels like a single instant. Morning arrives with no sense of the distance traveled. During deep sleep, the brain's ordinary sense of passing time is set aside. So the night leaves almost no felt length behind. Yet, in that seeming instant, the longest and most patient work of the mind was carried out. What passes as nothing to you was, to your brain, a full and unhurried shift. You are handed the finished morning without the hours it took. The labor done. The clock quietly skipped. The result simply waiting when you open your eyes. This unseen shift is not unique to you. Every sleeping human does exactly the same thing. The stranger asleep across the city. The child down the hall. A person on the far side of the world tonight. Each brain is quietly filing its day by the same rhythms, the same waves and bursts. It is one of the most private acts imaginable, sealed inside a single skull, and also one of the most universal, repeated in billions of dark rooms at once. The thing you cannot witness in yourself, no one can witness in themselves either. In that shared blindness, there is a kind of company. Everyone alive is absent from the same faithful work. Step back, and a pattern from the last while gathers into one clear shape. Everything the night does, the replaying, the sorting, the softening, the trimming, shares a single, strange feature. It needs your absence to work. Consciousness is not merely missing from these tasks. It seems to be the very thing that has to step aside for them to begin. So the question we started with turns slightly in the hand. It is no longer only what your brain finishes each night that you cannot reach. It is why the reaching itself must stop for the finishing to happen. What if being unable to witness this work is not a flaw in you, but the exact condition that lets it be done? Consider what it means to own a skill you can never perform on purpose. You cannot sit down and consolidate a memory the way you sit down and solve a sum. You cannot will your synapses to prune, or direct the night's librarian to keep this and release that. The whole apparatus runs on its own quiet authority, competent, complete, needing from you only that you stop interfering by staying awake. It is humbling and oddly restful at once. The most important curator of your mind does not require your guidance, has never once required it, and does its finest work precisely when you finally set the day down and give up the watch. Picture the archive of yourself at this hour. Quiet. 2. Its doors closed for the day. No visitors. No, you at the desk. Only the slow footsteps of the one who works alone here, moving between the shelves. Some pages are being copied to safer, deeper rooms. Some are being gently let go. The one who does this has done it every night of your life and asks for nothing but the empty hall. This is the shape of what is about to happen as you rest tonight. Not a shutting down, but the keeping open of a place you will never see lit. The reading room is closed to you so that the librarian can finally begin. Let your breathing slow for a moment and simply notice the weight of your own body settling. Somewhere beneath that stillness, the sorting has likely already begun. it does not wait for you to feel ready. You do not need to help it, or understand it, or stay awake to guard it. There is nothing here for you to do but grow heavier and let the quiet deepen around you. The question we have been holding can rest too, unanswered and safe, while the work it points to carries on without a trace of your effort. Stay soft. We will follow this a little further, gently, into the dark. Everything so far has circled one quiet truth. The mind's most faithful work is done in a room you are locked out of, for reasons that may be the point rather than the problem. Tonight, your brain will again finish something your waking self can never reach. Selecting, storing, softening, releasing, and hand you the results at dawn without a receipt. In the hours ahead, we will move closer to how this hidden shift is carried out, and what it quietly says about the self that sleeps through it. For now, it is enough to rest in the strange comfort of it. The work is already underway, and it has never needed you awake to succeed. If these first ideas have let your shoulders drop even a little, then this quiet hour is already doing what it was made to do. There is no need to follow every thread. Let the words blur whenever they want to. Stay with us as the night goes deeper. There is far more of this hidden world to wander through together, and nowhere else you need to be but here. Every night, your brain holds a kind of quiet review of the day, and you are not invited. While you sleep, it moves through the hours you just lived and decides which moments are worth keeping. Some experiences get strengthened. Others are allowed to fade. You never cast a vote in this. The sorting happens in regions you cannot feel working, following rules you never chose. By morning, the verdict is already delivered. Certain memories sharper, others thinner, and the deciding is finished before you open your eyes. The most important editing of your life runs entirely without you, in a room you are never shown. Deep inside your brain, a small seahorse-shaped structure called the hippocampus works as a temporary holding place for the day's new memories. But it was never built for long-term storage. During sleep, it slowly hands its contents to the outer cortex, where lasting memories live. Scientists call this system's consolidation. The hippocampus replays the day and teaches the cortex what to keep, night after night, until a memory no longer needs its help. You feel none of this transfer. The record of your life is being copied to a deeper shelf while you lie perfectly still in the dark, aware of nothing. Something strange happens in your sleeping hippocampus. It replays the day at high speed. Researchers recording brain activity see bursts called sharp wave ripples, tiny electrical storms in which the patterns from your waking hours fire again, compressed into fractions of a second. A path you walked, a face you met, replayed faster than you could ever live it. This rapid rehearsal is thought to be how a memory gets engraved more deeply into you. Your day is run again in miniature, over and over, and the mind that lived it the first time is nowhere present to watch the second. Not all memories are treated equally in the night. Your brain gives special attention to moments that carried strong feeling, During REM sleep, the amygdala, the brain's emotional core, grows active and helps stamp emotional experiences more firmly into storage. A frightening moment, or a tender one, is more likely to survive than a plain, forgettable hour. This is why you can lose 1,000 ordinary afternoons, yet keep the day something broke your heart. The brain quietly judges what mattered by how much it moved you. And it does that weighing long after the feeling itself has passed. While you sleep, your brain also keeps a closer eye on what rewarded you. Memories linked to something valuable. Food. Success. A moment that paid off. Are replayed more often during sleep than neutral ones. Studies in both animals and people show that experiences tied to reward get preferential rehearsal, as if the mind marks them worth revisiting. You never decide which of your days earn this treatment. A hidden accounting runs beneath awareness, tagging certain moments as important and feeding them back through the night. What felt good enough to matter is quietly chosen to last, and no one asks your permission first. Long before you sleep, your memories may already be marked for keeping. Neuroscientists describe a process called synaptic tagging. When an experience matters, the connections it uses receive a kind of molecular flag. Later, during sleep, the proteins needed to make that memory permanent are drawn to the flagged connections first. The tag says, "Keep this." The night does the building. It means the importance of a moment can be stamped in the instant it happens, then honored hours later while you rest. A decision made in daylight is quietly carried out in the dark. By machinery, you will never feel moving. There is no appeal to the verdict your sleeping brain reaches. Each night, it sits over the day and decides, moment by moment, what is worth the labor of keeping. And it never once puts the question to you. You do not learn which memories were chosen, or why one survived while its neighbor was let go. The judging happens in a court with no gallery, no record read aloud, no chance to speak on behalf of a moment you loved. By morning, the sentences are already carried out. What you wake remembering is not what you decided to keep. It is what a quiet, unconsulted part of you decided you could keep. The deepest, slowest stage of your sleep is where facts and events truly settle in. During slow-wave sleep, large, unhurried brain waves sweep across the cortex. And this is when declarative memory, the names, places, and details you can state out loud, is strengthened most. People who get more of this deep sleep after learning tend to recall more the next day. You cannot force these slow waves by trying. They arrive only when you fully let go. The knowledge you gathered while awake is quietly filed into permanence during the hours you are least aware of anything at all. Watch a brain in lighter sleep and you will see sudden bursts of fast activity called sleep spindles. These half-second flickers are more than noise. They appear to coordinate the conversation between the hippocampus and the cortex, opening brief windows in which a memory can be passed along and locked down. The more spindles a person shows after learning, the better they often remember afterward. Each one is a tiny gate swinging open in the dark, letting one more piece of your day move toward permanence. You produce hundreds of them a night and feel not a single one of them. All day, as you learn, the connections in your brain grow stronger and more crowded. If that only continued, the system would soon overload. One leading idea, the synaptic homeostasis hypothesis, proposes that sleep quietly turns the volume down, weakening connections across the board so the important ones still stand out against a calmer background. It is less like adding and more like pruning, a nightly trimming that keeps memory sharp by letting the trivial recede. You never feel this downscaling happen. What survives the pruning stands clearer at dawn, and what was cut away is simply, gently, not missed. Forgetting is not always a failure of your brain. Sometimes it is a decision. Sleep appears to actively curate your memories, letting go of what it judges unimportant so the meaningful can remain. This is not the mind breaking down, it is the mind editing. A day full of small, forgettable detail is trimmed to its few worthwhile lines while you rest. You never sense the cutting, and you rarely notice what was removed. Because the strange thing about a well-cut memory is that its missing pieces leave no gap. Curation this clean stays invisible, even to the one being curated in the dark. How does a sleeping brain decide what counts? With no waking mind to ask, it reads the marks the day left behind. Strong emotion, surprise, reward, and the chemical signals they release, dopamine and others, act like flags on certain memories, raising them above the ordinary. The brain does not need your opinion. The experience itself was tagged as it happened. So the judgment of importance is made in advance, written into the memory's own chemistry, then read back in the night. Your deepest sense of what mattered today was recorded by a system you never consulted and cannot overrule. Sometimes you wake up better at something than when you fell asleep. Musicians and athletes know this quietly. Practice a difficult passage or movement. Sleep on it, and the next morning it flows more smoothly, though you did nothing in between. Studies of motor learning confirm it. Performance can improve overnight, without further practice, as sleep consolidates the skill. The gain was assembled while you were unconscious, by a brain rehearsing the motion in the dark. You take the credit for the skill, but the final polishing was done by a worker you never saw and cannot thank. And sometimes you wake to find something quietly gone. A name that was on your tongue last night. A detail you were sure you would keep. Thinned to nothing by morning. This is the other half of the night's work. Not everything is chosen, and what is not chosen fades. The forgetting is usually gentle and unannounced, so you rarely catch the moment a memory slips past the threshold of keeping. By the time you notice, the deciding is long finished. Some part of yesterday was let go while you slept, and you were never asked whether you agreed. Consider what all of this means together. Every night, your brain sits in judgment over the day you just lived, replaying it, weighing it, keeping some of it and releasing the rest. And the one person it never consults is you. The sorting begins only once your awareness has switched off. So the question sharpens rather than settles. What is your brain quietly finishing each night that your waking mind will never be allowed to reach by the time you wake? The work is done and the workers are gone. You inherit the results. A memory kept. A moment lost. But the deciding itself stays out of view. There is nothing you need to do here but keep breathing slowly, letting the night hold you. Somewhere beneath this stillness, your brain is already at its patient sorting, and it asks nothing of you but rest. You already know this feeling. You wrestle with a problem, get nowhere, and finally give up for the night. Then morning comes, and the answer is simply there, waiting, as if someone solved it while you slept. The old advice to sleep on, it turns out to describe something real. Your waking mind hands the problem over at the door of sleep, and something on the other side keeps working. You never feel the effort. You only meet the result. That quiet handoff, from the self that struggles to the self that finishes, is the mystery this part of the night is built around. In a German laboratory, researchers once gave volunteers a tedious number puzzle. Each string of digits had to be processed step by step, following two plain rules. Hidden inside the task, though, was a shortcut, an elegant pattern that made the answer appear almost instantly, if you happened to notice it. Most people did not. They ground through the numbers by hand, never suspecting a simpler path lay underneath. The scientists let some participants sleep before trying again, and kept others awake for the same stretch of hours. Then they waited to see who would suddenly catch the hidden rule, and who would keep laboring in the dark. When morning came, the difference was striking. Among those who had slept, more than twice as many suddenly spotted the hidden shortcut, compared with those who had stayed awake. Sleep had not simply rested them. Somewhere in the night, their brains had reworked the puzzle and surfaced its buried logic, without any conscious searching at all. The scientists titled their report, plainly, that sleep inspires insight. What makes this so tender is the timing. The understanding did not come from trying harder. It came from stopping, from letting go, from trusting the dark to finish what the daylight could not. Step away from a problem, and something strange happens. Psychologists call it incubation, the way an answer can ripen while your attention is somewhere else entirely. You stop consciously working, yet the work does not stop. Beneath your awareness, your mind keeps turning the pieces, testing combinations you never chose to test. Sleep may be incubation at its deepest, freed from the noise of the day, from every task demanding your focus. The brain is left to wander among your memories, unsupervised. It follows threads you would have dismissed while awake. And sometimes, in that unguarded wandering, it stumbles onto exactly the thing you needed. While you drift through the night, your brain quietly replays the day. Cells that fired during waking hours fire again in sequence. faster now, rehearsing what happened. But this replay does more than repeat. It shuffles. Memories from different moments, different weeks, even different years, get activated near one another, and the brain notices where they overlap. Connections form between things your waking mind kept in separate rooms. None of this requires your permission, or even your awareness. This is how an old lesson can suddenly answer a new question. Overnight, your experiences are cross-referenced, and links appear that no one, not even you, ever deliberately drew. Something loosens overnight that stays tight by day. During certain stages of sleep, especially the dreaming kind, the brain seems to reach for more distant associations, pairing ideas that ordinarily sit far apart. Studies of creative word puzzles hint that people can wake with a wider net, more able to link remote concepts than they were before they slept. The evidence here is still gathering, so hold it gently. But the picture that keeps emerging is quietly hopeful. The same night that dims your worries may also be widening your mind, letting it find the odd, unexpected bridge that waking logic marches right past. The answer arrives whole. This is perhaps the strangest part of solving a problem in sleep. You do not experience the steps, the false starts, the slow assembling of a solution. You simply wake, and it is finished, sitting in your mind complete, as though it had always been obvious. The labor stays invisible to you. Only the outcome crosses over into morning. It can feel less like thinking and more like receiving, as if the insight were a gift someone had left quietly on the doorstep of your waking self. And in a way you may never fully grasp. That is exactly what it is. History is dotted with discoveries people credited to sleep. The chemist who claimed to see the arrangement of the elements laid out in a dream. The scientist who said the ring-shaped structure of a molecule came to him while dozing, picturing a snake seizing its own tail. These stories are told and retold, and we should hold them loosely, because memory embellishes and a good tale tends to grow in the telling. Still, they persist for a reason. They match something people quietly recognize in themselves. That the mind at rest sometimes hands us what the mind at work could not. One often told story belongs to a scientist studying how nerves speak to the heart. He said the crucial experiment came to him in the night, twice, and only on the second waking did he manage to write it down in time. By morning, the design was clear, and it later helped earn him a Nobel Prize. Whether it truly happened quite so neatly, no one can say for certain. But researchers keep returning to accounts like his, because they echo what the laboratory keeps finding: that a problem carried down into sleep can be carried back out, transformed, solved by hands you never saw move. Notice, for a moment, how little of this you have ever had to earn. You are lying here, doing nothing at all, and still the most important work goes on inside you. It can be hard to trust that. If you have spent your life believing that only effort counts, that rest is something you must first deserve, let that belief soften now. The night does not ask you to try. It only asks you to let go, so the quieter part of you can do what it has always known how to do. Breathe out slowly and let it. Consider who takes the credit for all of this. In the morning, you will say, "I figured it out. I finally understood," as though the solving belonged entirely to your waking self. But your waking self was asleep. The real work was done by a version of you that you never quite meet, laboring in the dark with no witness and no applause. This is the quiet question underneath the whole night. What does your brain finish each night that your waking mind can never reach? You wake holding the answer, and you will never once see the hand that placed it there. Tonight, while you sleep, your hippocampus does something you will never watch happen. It replays the day. Neuroscientists first saw this clearly in rats. The same brain cells that fired as an animal ran a maze, fired again during sleep. Matthew Wilson and Bruce McNaughton reported this reactivation in 1994, and later work showed the cells replay in the same sequence they first fired. Your brain rehearses recent experience while your eyes are closed, running the day's path a second time. You lived the moment once, your sleeping brain is quietly living it again. And you were given no sense organ that could ever turn and watch it do so. Here is the strange part. When your brain replays a memory in sleep, it does not run in real time. It speeds up. A path that took you minutes to walk can return in a fraction of a second, compressed into a rapid burst. Researchers measure this fast forward in the firing of place cells, squeezed into tiny windows of deep sleep. Your waking mind could never experience time this way. The night edits your day down to its essentials and plays it back faster than thought. A highlight reel you are never shown, folding hours into an instant. Consider what this means for your sense of a night's sleep. To you, sleep feels like nothing. A dark gap, a blank. Yet inside that blank, your brain is busy staging replay after replay. These fast-forward bursts happen many times an hour, entirely below awareness. You cannot feel a single one. This is the first hint of tonight's quiet truth. The most important work your mind does may be precisely the work you can never witness. The gap you call sleep is not empty. It is a workshop with the lights off. Deep inside the hippocampus, these replays ride on a signal called a sharp wave ripple, a very fast electrical shimmer, faster than 100 cycles a second. George Bujaki, who has studied them for decades, calls the ripple among the most synchronized events the brain ever produces. And here is the strangeness at the heart of it. The single most synchronized event your brain ever produces is also one you have no sense organ to detect. There is no way to feel a ripple. Bundles of neurons fire together in a tight, ordered rush. That rush is the memory returning, and it arrives as a sharp, silent spark you were simply never built to notice. What makes sharp-wave ripples matter is what happens when they are disturbed. In animal studies, when researchers selectively blocked these ripples during sleep, the animals struggled to remember what they had just learned. The memories did not fully set. Interfere with the ripple, and you interfere with the record. It suggests these tiny bursts are not decoration. They are part of how an experience becomes a lasting memory. Something you did today may endure for years because tonight, a ripple you cannot detect fired at exactly the right moment in the dark. Rising from a different part of your sleeping brain comes a second signal. The sleep spindle. On a recording, it looks like a sudden burst of waves that grows and fades in about a second, shaped like a spindle of thread. Spindles are generated with the help of the thalamus, a hub deep in your brain, and they cluster in lighter stages of sleep. You produce hundreds, even thousands, across a single night. Each one is a small pulse of coordination, and each passes through you unnoticed. A quiet flare you will never feel arrive or leave. Spindles appear to be closely tied to learning. In several studies, when people took on a demanding new task, the number of spindles in the sleep that followed rose. The more there was to absorb, the more the sleeping brain seemed to produce. Researchers think each spindle helps open a brief window in which a fresh memory is strengthened and wired more firmly into place. Sit with what that means. You have burned learning into place 10,000 times over your life and never once noticed the pulse that did it. The effort you spend by day quietly reshapes the electrical weather of your night, adjusting a process you set in motion but can never feel turning. Even more telling, the amount of spindle activity can help predict how much you remember. Studies have found that people with richer spindle activity overnight tend to recall more of what they studied the day before. The relationship is not perfect, and scientists are still mapping it. But the pattern keeps returning. The busier this hidden signal, the better memory tends to hold. Your recall tomorrow morning is being shaped tonight by a rhythm you have no way to sense, tune, or even know is happening. Beneath the spindles, in your deepest sleep, moves the slowest rhythm of all. These are the slow oscillations of deep sleep. Great, sweeping waves that roll across the cortex fewer than once a second. During them, huge populations of neurons rise and fall together, almost in unison. It is one of the most orderly states your brain ever enters. You reach it every night, usually within the first hour, and you have never once perceived it. The grandest, slowest tide your mind produces passes entirely in the dark of dreamless sleep. Look closer at these slow waves, and you find a rhythm of on and off. Each slow oscillation carries an active phase, when neurons across the cortex fire together, and a silent phase, when they briefly fall quiet almost as one. Your brain is switching, second by second, between a shared hush and a shared surge. Scientists see this as a kind of metronome for the night's deeper work, a beat that other signals can lock onto. It keeps steady time inside your skull, and you will sleep through every stroke of it. These slow waves seem to act as a conductor. Their steady rise and fall appears to set the timing for the faster signals above them. The ripples in the hippocampus and the spindles from the thalamus. When the slow wave lifts into its active phase, it opens a moment when those other bursts can align. The deep, slow tide organizes the quicker sparks. Nothing about this is chaos. It is a scored performance playing out in your head each night, led by a conductor you will never see raise its hand. What all this timing serves is a conversation between two parts of your brain. The hippocampus holds recent memories in a fast, temporary form. The cortex, your brain's vast outer sheet, is built for storage that lasts. In sleep, the two appear to talk. The hippocampus replays. The cortex listens and records. Researchers describe it as a dialogue carried on entirely in electrical rhythm. Every night, the day's fresh experiences are read aloud from one region and slowly copied into another. An exchange conducted in a language your waking self has never spoken. Let the details blur here for a moment. You do not need to hold any of these names or rhythms. Just feel your breath go slower, and let the words move past you like weather. There is nothing to memorize tonight, nothing to keep hold of. Let it wash on, and let yourself grow heavier where you lie. This slow copying has a name: systems consolidation. A memory does not stay where it first forms. Over nights of sleep it gradually migrates, loosening from its fragile early home in the hippocampus and settling into more permanent storage across the cortex. A single night moves it only a little. But here is the quiet marvel of it. The memory you will still recall in decades is being moved to a new address tonight, room by room, while you lie unaware, and you will never once be handed a receipt. What feels like a fixed possession is really something in transit, carried along a route you never chart and never see. Think of a memory from years ago, a face, a place, a moment. When you recall it now, you likely lean less on your hippocampus and more on your cortex than you did the day it formed. That shift did not happen at once. It accumulated across countless nights of quiet transfer. The oldest, steadiest memories you own have, in a sensor, moved house many times in your sleep. What feels like a fixed picture of your past is really the result of slow, invisible migrations you were never awake to see. Scientists Jan Born and Suzanne Diekelman gave this whole process a name: active systems consolidation. In their account, deep sleep does not passively hold memories. It actively selects them, replays them, and drives them into lasting form, with slow waves, spindles, and ripples working in concert. Notice how the night's question has quietly turned. You began by wondering what your sleeping brain finishes that you can never reach. Here is part of the answer taking shape. It is not merely resting. It is choosing which pieces of your day are worth keeping, and doing the keeping without you. The precision of all this lies in the timing. Researchers have found that memory seems to benefit most when spindles and slow waves lock together. When a spindle arrives at just the right point on the slow wave's rise. This coupling, they suggest, marks the moments when a memory is most likely to be strengthened. It is not enough for the signals to fire. They must fire in step. Somewhere, tonight, two rhythms you cannot sense will meet on the beat, and a fragment of your day will quietly become part of you. Take that partnership one step further, and you reach a three-way meeting. Increasingly, studies point to moments when hippocampal ripples, spindles, and slow waves all align in a brief, nested window. In that instant, replay from the hippocampus arrives exactly as the cortex is most ready to receive it. Scientists think these rare alignments may be prime moments of memory transfer. Your night is threaded with such fleeting handshakes between distant regions, each one gone in a fraction of a second, none of them ever surfacing into anything you could call an experience. Perhaps the most humbling discovery is that sleep does not save everything. It chooses. Not every memory from your day is replayed and strengthened. Many quietly fade. Research suggests your sleeping brain favors what mattered. Information you will need again. Experiences marked as important. The rest is allowed to soften and slip away. So the record you wake with is already edited. A silent judgment has been passed on your day, keeping some moments and releasing others. According to priorities you never consciously set and a verdict you never hear delivered. How does a sleeping brain know what mattered? One idea is that important experiences get a kind of tag while you are awake. A chemical or electrical mark that says, "Remember this." During sleep, tagged memories appear more likely to be replayed and kept. Signals of relevance, reward, or emotion may raise a memory's chances of surviving the night. In effect, your waking mind leaves notes for your sleeping mind, and your sleeping mind reads them in a language of its own, sorting your life without ever consulting you again. Emotion, it turns out, carries weight in this sorting. Studies find that emotionally charged memories are often preserved more strongly across sleep than neutral ones. Something that moved you today stands a better chance of lasting than something that did not. Researchers think sleep tends to keep the details that matter most and let ordinary background fade. It is part of why the moments that stirred you tend to stay, sometimes for a lifetime. A quiet part of you decided, in the night, that those were the ones worth engraving, and you slept straight through the decision. In one striking line of studies, scientists learned to nudge this hidden sorting from the outside. People learned material paired with a sound or a scent. When that same cue was quietly replayed during their sleep, they later remembered the linked material better. Jan Born, Ken Paller, and others have shown this again and again. The sleeping brain, it seems, will answer a cue it never notices receiving. It is proof that the night's memory work is real and reachable, yet it runs on, que or no que, in a part of you sealed away from waking reach. There may be a second kind of night work happening alongside memory. A newer and still debated idea, called the glymphatic system, proposes that during deep sleep, the spaces between your brain cells widen. letting fluid wash through and carry away waste. It was first described in mice by researchers including Mike and Nedergaard around 2013. Whether it works the same way in humans is still being studied, and scientists urge caution. But the possibility is striking. That sleep may quietly clean the very tissue that does your remembering, in a process no sense of yours can detect. If that emerging picture holds, deep sleep would be doing two hidden jobs at once. Some researchers have proposed that the same slow rhythms tied to memory may also help drive this fluid clearance, linking the night's remembering and its cleaning. This remains an open, actively debated question, not a settled fact. Still, imagine it for a moment. While your brain files away the day, it may also be rinsing itself clean, both tasks unfolding in the same silent dark. Two forms of invisible care, neither of which asks your permission or your attention. Step back and notice the shape of all these facts. Replay, ripples, spindles, slow waves. The great migration of memory from one region to another. Not one of them can be felt. There is no sensation of a memory being saved. No flicker of awareness as your past is filed and stored. Your brain has kept its most vital housekeeping entirely off-screen, behind the closed door of sleep. You are, in the most literal way, a stranger to the mind that makes you who you are, closest to it, yet never once its witness. So here is what the night has been assembling, piece by piece. Every evening, without your knowledge or your consent, your sleeping brain reaches into the raw hours of your day, selects the memories that matter most, and engraves them into who you will become. It decides what your life will keep. This is the work you can never reach. Not rest, but authorship. The quiet writing of yourself, carried out by a part of you that finishes each night long before you wake. What your sleeping brain knows, it never tells you. It simply keeps you. Let your breath slow now, and let it happen without you. Right now, in the quiet under your thoughts, the sorting has already begun. The keeping, the setting down, the careful choosing of what your day was worth. You do not have to guide it. You never could. Let your hands go still. Let the work go on in the dark where it has always lived. You are being written safely, and you are allowed to rest while it happens. Tonight, while you rest, your hippocampus is quietly choosing. It replays fragments of the day in tiny bursts of electrical activity called sharp wave ripples, each one lasting only a fraction of a second. Researchers studying memory have recorded these ripples, marking which moments get saved and which are let go. You will never feel a single one of them. The most careful editor of your life works in a language you cannot read and asks nothing of you in return. Deep in slow-wave sleep, your brain runs waves so large and slow they wash across the whole cortex, roughly one every second. Riding on top of them are quick bursts called sleep spindles. Each spindle is thought to help lift a memory from the fragile hippocampus into the wider brain, where it can last. You do not conduct this rhythm or keep its time. It rises on its own, a tide moving through you while you lie still. Your sleeping brain runs the day faster than you ever lived it. In animals, a path that took seconds to walk returns in a flash, a fraction as long. And scientists believe your brain compresses its important moments the same way. But notice the thing you cannot do with any of it. There is no screening room where you get to sit and watch. The replay is not dimmed or distant. It is simply pitched to a channel your waking mind was never given a receiver for. The most faithful account of your day is played, in full, to no audience but the dark. Not everything is kept, and that is by design. As you sleep, your brain also lets go, gently weakening the connections that carried nothing worth saving. Scientists call this synaptic downscaling, a quiet turning down of the day's noise so the signal can stand out. Forgetting, it turns out, is not a failure of the machine. It is part of the craft. Some of the night's most careful work is deciding, on your behalf, what you no longer need to carry. Somewhere in the night, a memory changes address without telling you. Early on, it leans on the hippocampus, that small seahorse-shaped structure deep in your head. Over many nights, it is copied outward into the broad neocortex, where it can rest for years. You are never notified of the move. You simply wake one ordinary morning to find that something you once had to reach for is now just there. Settled. Home. The most important relocations of your life are carried out while you sleep, by movers you will never meet and never need to. Sleep gently sorts your feelings from your facts. During REM sleep, the brain appears to revisit emotional memories and soften their sharpest edges while keeping the lesson intact. Studies of dreaming sleep suggest this is where yesterday's sting slowly becomes something you can hold without flinching. The ache seems to be quietly metabolized as you rest. No effort of yours is required for the wound to begin, on its own, to close a little more. Here is a tenderness you will never catch in the act. Your mind can be tending one specific thought while you are certain nothing at all is happening. Scientists have shown the sleeping brain will answer a faint signal and quietly strengthen just the memory it points to, though the sleeper never stirs and never knows. You do not have to believe the work is going on for it to go on. Somewhere under the flat dark you experience as nothing. Something patient is choosing on your behalf, gently, without needing your faith in it. The not knowing is not a loss. It is the very form the care takes. New connections are quietly built while you sleep. In Meche, 2-photon imaging has caught fresh dendritic spines, tiny points where neurons meet, forming on the branches of cells after learning, specifically during deep sleep. Each spine is a physical place where a memory can live. Whether it happens in just this way in us is still being worked out, but the picture is a tender one. Overnight, the brain doing patient carpentry, adding rooms you asked for without knowing you asked. And you are given no way to hear the hammering. By morning, the structure of your mind is subtly, invisibly different from the night before. Your brain may also be cleaning itself while you sleep. A still debated idea. The glymphatic system suggests that the channels between your brain cells widen in sleep, letting fluid wash through and carry away some of the day's waste. First described in mice, it is not yet settled in humans, and researchers urge caution. But hold the possibility gently, that the same dark hours which file your memories may also be rinsing the very tissue that holds them. You would never feel such a tide come in or go out. If it is real, it is one more kind of housekeeping you were never meant to keep yourself. The choosing is not random. Your brain seems to favor memories tagged as important, things tied to reward, to feeling, to what you cared about that day. Experiments show that simply expecting to need information later makes the sleeping brain more likely to save it. Somewhere below thought, a sense of what matters to you is guiding the hand that engraves. You are being read more closely and more kindly than you have ever read yourself. Even the timing is not yours to set. The stages of sleep arrive in a settled order. Lighter sleep, deep, slow waves, then dreaming, cycling roughly every 90 minutes across the night. Each stage does a different part of the work of remembering. You do not schedule them or hurry them along. The order unfolds the way seasons do, in a sequence far older than any plan you could ever make for yourself. This work does not wait for you to be good at resting. Even in broken, imperfect sleep, the brain grabs what deep stages it can and does the consolidating anyway. Studies of naps show that even 20 minutes can move a memory toward permanence. You do not have to sleep perfectly to be tended to. The night librarian works with whatever hours you can give it, and never once complains about the ones you cannot. You share this with every sleeping creature. Sharp wave ripples, the replay of the day, the sorting of memory in sleep. The same machinery has been found in rats, in birds, in the smallest of mammals. This is not a private trick of your particular mind. It is one of the oldest routines life has, running in you tonight exactly as it runs in a sleeping bird on a branch. You are held inside a very old, very common grace. Infants do this work most of all. Newborns spend far more of their sleep in the active, dreaming state than adults do, at the very time their brains are building the fastest. Before a child can speak or plan or try, the sleeping brain is already selecting and saving. The most important work of a mind begins long before there is a self to witness it. It never once needed you to be watching in order to begin. Consider what this quietly means for you. Every night of your life, without a moment of your attention, your brain has been selecting the memories that would become you. The faces, the words, the small ordinary evenings, and engraving them where they would last. The self you woke as this morning was written for you in the dark. You have been cared for, all along, by a part of yourself that has never once asked to be thanked. You cannot reach this place by trying. The moment you grow aware and go looking for the consolidation happening in your sleep, you are awake. And awake. It stops. The work belongs to a state you can only enter by letting go of the wish to see it. There is a whole province of yourself that opens only when the watching mind steps back. Some things in you are built precisely so that you cannot supervise them. And that may be a quiet mercy. Imagine having to choose, on purpose, which of the day's 10,000 moments to keep and which to release, every night, for the rest of your life. You would never finish. You would never sleep. The brain spares you the impossible task by doing it beneath awareness, quickly and well. What can feel like being shut out of your own mind is really being freed from a job too large for any waking person to hold. Trust is the only reasonable answer here. You already trust your heart to beat and your lungs to fill without a word of instruction from you. The nightly engraving of memory belongs to that same order of quiet. Competent work. You are not the manager of your mind so much as its grateful guest. And the parts of you that run without you have never yet, in all your thousands of nights, failed to carry you safely to morning. What you release at night, you often find gently returned. People wake with answers they went to sleep unable to reach. The tangled problem loosened. The melody resolved. The right word simply waiting there. Studies of sleep and insight show the brain reorganizing knowledge overnight into new connections. You handed it a knot, and it handed back a thread. The gift arrives from a giver you will never once catch in the act of giving. Even your body learns while you sleep. A skill practiced during the day. A passage of music. A new movement becomes measurably smoother after a night of rest, with no further practice at all. The motor memories are replayed and refined while you lie completely still. You get better at things, in part, by stopping. The hands you wake with are a little more capable than the hands you closed your eyes with, and you did nothing but rest. There is no ledger for you to check. You will never receive a report of what your brain saved last night, or what it let quietly fall away. And you do not need one. The remembering happens whether or not it is witnessed. The way a garden keeps growing, whether or not anyone counts the leaves. The worth of the work does not depend on your knowing it was done. It is enough, entirely enough, that it was done. The unseen work is the important work. The memories that make you who you are were never chosen in daylight, by effort, on purpose. They were selected in silence, by a mind operating with a wisdom your waking self cannot match. The most consequential editing of your whole life has always happened in a place where you could not reach in to interfere. And nothing has been lost for your not having watched over it. You can lay the day down now. Whatever happened today, the words you wish you had said, the thing left unfinished, the worry you turned over and over, you can simply hand it to the night. The sorting brain will take it. Keep what serves you, soften what stings, and release the rest. You do not have to solve any of it before you sleep. You only have to set it down where the quiet work can reach it. And you will wake changed. Gently. Not dramatically. Not all at once. But truer. The day's chaos quietly filed. The important things pressed a little deeper into who you are. Morning will find you carrying less and holding more. This is the oldest promise the sleeping brain keeps. Night after night, without a word of announcement, you go under tangled, and you rise, by a hand you never see, a little more yourself than before. So here, at last, is the answer to the question beneath this whole quiet hour. What your brain finishes each night, in a place your waking mind can never reach, is you, the careful keeping of everything that matters, engraved in the dark by a care you never had to earn or witness. You were never meant to do this work. You were only ever meant to rest and let yourself be kept. Tonight, let the unseen hands do what they have always done. You are safe to stop watching now. By now, the pattern has settled into something clear. Every part of this hour has pointed the same direction. Inward, toward the work you never see. You heard how your hippocampus replays the day in ripples too faint to feel, and how a memory is carried slowly, house by house, from that small deep structure out into the wide cortex where it can last for years. None of it was ever really about sleep. It was about how much of who you are is made without you, and how safe you have always been in those unseen hands. You came into this hour half believing you had to hold your whole life together by yourself. You can leave it knowing the most important keeping was never yours to do, and has never once, in all your nights, been left undone. If this hour helped you loosen your grip even a little, you might leave a quiet word below before you drift. It helps others who lie awake, trying to manage everything alone, find their way to this same stillness. And if you would like to keep falling asleep in this kind of gentle company, this is where these calm nights quietly live, waiting for you. Somewhere beneath your thoughts, the night has already begun its quiet sorting. Small ripples rising and falling through the dark of your mind, keeping what matters, releasing the rest, asking nothing at all of you. Let your attention grow soft and wide. Let the need to follow it, to watch it, to hold on to any of it, simply loosen and fall away. Let your entire being dissolve into that slow and patient tide, the one that has kept you safe through every night you can no longer remember. There is nothing left for you to do. The work is already resting in kind and capable hands. Let that tide carry the last of the day out with it, further and further, until even the wish to rest dissolves. Let your breath slow on its own, each one a little deeper than the last, drawing you gently downward. There is nothing left to keep. Everything worth keeping is already being kept for you. This is the promise the Sleepy Science Facts playlist returns to, night after night, that the quiet science of your own resting body is enough to carry you all the way into sleep. Another of these calm hours is here whenever you are ready for it. And if your eyes have already closed, let them stay closed now, There is nothing left tonight that needs your watching. Rest easy. Watchful one. The most important work of your life is already being done, and it was never yours to do. Sleep now, and let the quiet science hold you. Good night.